thoughts on that?
Definitely. I mean, food in Singapore, I feel is a ties that bind, that put us together, and it's so multi-ethnic and multicultural. And I think in Singapore, it's about one of the few places in the world where you get the whole of Asia on a table, and you can enjoy the whole meal.
Yeah, likewise, Singapore is such a, it's a diverse country with so many different communities coming together. We do a lot of exchanges that create a special, uniquely Singapore cuisine.
That's right. The both of you are very, 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 very well known in the local culinary industry. But how did you all actually get started on your food journey? Violet, I'm going to start with you.
Well, mine started about 50 years ago. I'm now 70. When I was in my late teens, actually, and I sort of was abroad, and then I missed Singapore food, and I think you don't love something as much as when you miss it. And when I came back, and I'm Peranakan, and there were very few restaurants, and I realized that if my aunties and all were not around, where was I going to eat it? So I started learning how to cook, and then I became a journalist, and then I became a food writer, and that gave me the chance to sort of delve into other people's cultures, to find their stories. And it's actually been a lifetime of curating, collecting, and celebrating Singapore food.
Right. Eric?
For me, I'm different. I started at the age of 16. I left school. 16? Yeah, I left school at a very young age. And I decided to pick up cooking as a hobby, but then it became a career. And ever since, I've never turned back, yeah.
Well, it seems like it's been such a huge part of your lives from your late teens. So how have you seen sort of the Singapore food scene evolve over the years?
The Singapore food scene has evolved tremendously, especially in cooking techniques. Nowadays, a lot of chefs like to use modern cooking techniques to treat old recipes and then recreate the new dishes.
Yeah, and I think what's happened is that over the last, what I remember since I was a child in the 1950s, a lot of communities have come together and shared their food. And I think Peranakan food is a good example of a sharing. I say it's a perfect marriage of the East with the East. Chinese Hokkien food with Malay food, overtones of Indian as well as British food. And then you have a beautiful result, a cuisine that comes out of it. And that's one example. There's so many others in Singapore.
And especially at our upcoming event on the 1st of June at Fort Canning, we call Eat Your History Village. So one of the Chef Heiko, is going to use modern techniques to cook his gulai kambing nanas dish.
Okay. Yeah. So before we get to that, Violet, I wanted to ask you. So you mentioned there different cultures marrying, especially for the Peranakan food. Can you give us examples of how that has happened?
Well, I'm doing itik sio, which is sort of a braised duck. Originally from China, it will be very braised duck with soy sauce and maybe lengkuas and some garlic. But when the cultures mix and get Malay food, it's much stronger in flavor. And so Peranakans added tamarind as well as coriander powder and a soy sauce to the flavor, and it becomes something so different but yet familiar. And that's a dish that we're going to feature on Saturday. I think there are 4 chefs.
Yeah, we have 4 chefs featuring different cuisines. We have 2 of the 4 Heavenly King chefs, representing Cantonese cuisine, and we have Violet representing the Peranakan cuisine, and we have Chef Heiko Johari representing the Malay cuisine, and we have Chef Billy Suvani representing Indian cuisine.
You certainly have all your bases covered. I gotta say, I'm loving the marketing for all this Eat Your History.
I know.
You've got the 4 heavenly chefs.
Yes.
Sounds divine.
But what's happening is that you can actually eat.
Which is the best part.
That's going to be like, each of us are going to be feeding over 500 people and sharing our story. And I think it's really Eat Your History. It gives you a chance not to only hear about it, but to actually taste it.
And an event like this, I would imagine, it would be very easily to get oversubscribed. Are you expecting there to be like a huge turnout?
Sure, I think we're expecting thousands, right?
So how do you cope with that number? Because you're going to have to constantly be delivering the food, right?
The chef has been planning, so he's been coordinating all of us. And
So
planning for
closely.
months, right?
We work closely with the agency
Yeah.
to make sure that everything is being well planned. There's a kitchen built up in the
For
area.
canning.
Yeah. So we'll be serving tasting portions to the public.
Right. So whoever goes there, don't worry. You're going to be able to eat your history because
Yes.
you're going to constantly
Yeah,
make sure
I
that.
think there's a subscription for people to say that they want to come.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but I have a question. So you say eat your history, but what can we learn about each other's culture through the food that we're eating?
For sure. For example, one of the dish, for example, by the two of the chef, heavenly pink chefs, who represent Cantonese cuisine, they are doing a crab meat roll with chicken liver and salted egg yolk. So this dish actually was when the four chefs, when they came in the 1800s, they learned from their masters. Their masters came from Guangzhou in China. So they learned this dish, and then usually this dish is being offered during weddings. And now in this era, nobody serves that dish anymore.
Yeah,
right.
So they decided to revive this dish to the public and then share the story behind it. So this is another way of sharing different cultures through food.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like when we eat Sio, for example, it comes from the Taoist, Peranakan for Taoist ancestor worship.
Right.
It would be when you're at the altar, it's celebrating a birthday or a death anniversary. It would be a whole chicken, a whole duck.
So
and a
things
whole-
that we
yeah.
don't normally get to taste, we will
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
taste at the event of the
Yes.
bicentennial. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us. We've been speaking with chefs Violet and